Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are here. It's very early days in the In Too Deep podcast, and it is an honor and a pleasure to have my friend Lockie Clancy here today as one of our very early guests. I've been watching what Lockie's been up to for a while now. Physically, he is an absolute specimen. From the long run days, raising money for charity. How many Ks was that in the end?
It's 126, 3 marathons.
3 marathons, and I believe it was probably 35 degrees in the morning when we kicked off.
Yeah, that first day was the hottest. I think it was the hottest weekend on record since they started recording weather, basically. So
yeah,
we're up against that.
Yeah, it was a scorcher. I think I lasted about 30 Ks and basically fell apart. So I'll let you finish that off for me. He has been sharing his journey to the Hyrox World Champs. We had a conversation last year and he was looking at launching something, and that was a while ago now. And I noticed he was posting a lot of content, a lot of good content. And I was like, something's brewing. So something's coming, which we will discuss later. He's got a new brand he's about to launch. But before that, I can give you a little intro, but how about you tell the people from your own words, who is Lockie Clancy?
So that's a tough one, isn't it? Who is Lockie Clancy? Who's Lockie Clancy? I mean, it's a good question. I always try and avoid, because I feel like a lot of people tend to go with what's their career, and there's more to people than just their career. First and foremost, I'm a husband to Emily. I live and breathe, and I love my health and fitness. It just brings so much routine to my life. I'm probably a wannabe professional athlete. And then off the back of that really is, through my personal journey, everyone's got a journey, is really trying to use that as a platform to try and inspire and I guess, help leave the world in a better place than it was when I first came on it.
Okay. So that's great to hear. Let's talk a little bit about the brand, mate. So you're sharing the journey and obviously something is going on behind that. So what have you been working on? What are we about to see from you and a few of the other boys that we were talking about off camera before?
Mate, it's really, really exciting. It's an activewear brand. We believe there's a gap here in Australia, and obviously we want to grow globally, but to really build a very high quality product at a slightly different price point to what the market's seen. And really, I mean, the brand's 110, and I can talk to you a bit about, I guess, the meaning of that and where that's come from, and really trying to, I guess, have a more authentic, organic approach to the brand and really building a community. We believe that, being a part of a community is key to anyone's individual journey. And they talk about it when you're raising a kid, it takes a village. And I think, to achieve your own goals, I think being a part of a community, even if it's achieving your own individual goals, just gets you there. So 110 for us is dual meaning. It's 110%. And, everyone wants to try and get 110% out of themselves, whether it's physical, at work, just in life, but I think everyone wants to be a better version of themselves. And then if you break it down, 1 represents, I guess, the community you become a part of when you wear it or when you go and purchase it. And then we've got 10 sort of guiding principles off the back of that we believe you can incorporate into your life or your journey to getting to a certain goal, to achieving that 110% out of yourself. So, I mean, to rattle off a couple, I'm not going to rattle off 10, but, there's key things like consistency, accountability, pride, passion in the things that you're doing to trying to get that 110% out of yourself.
Okay, so the community thing, I obviously really vibe with. Ex-gym owner, of 7 years, and just seeing the community that you can build and the results that people can get when they have that accountability, they have a space where they can go to with like-minded people. So the activewear brand market is obviously very crowded, but it sounds like you've got a bit of a point of difference there. So how are you going to integrate the community stuff with, purchasing an item of clothing?
Yeah, so I think it's we're not going to sit here and say we've built the community. Obviously, it's going to evolve over time, and it's people like yourself that have taken that journey and grown a business for 7 years and build that community. So we want to try and get into grassroots, like people like yourself, ex-gym owners or existing gyms, and we want to take a leaf out of their book, out of their community. I mean, we want to not shop it around, but go and learn from all these communities that are already there, whether it's a run club, whether it's, a gym or whatever it might be, taking the leaf out of all those books and then trying to put that onto a global scale. So we want to leverage, gyms, and we also want to try and create our own run clubs. And, we've got big aspirations that, maybe one day too, we might branch into that space as well. But that's a long way. We've got a brand to try and establish and get on its own 2 feet before we get there. But, I think, the community, I think everyone's been starved of it through COVID and everyone's really looking for it. So if we can get into that grassroots community and try and put it back on a global scale, which it clearly is, run clubs have blown up.
Yeah.
But, I love going to the gym and seeing people achieve what they're setting out to achieve, or, being there and having people pat me on the back or tap me on the ass to go, good on you, you get in there. And, so that's sort of the emphasis around the community we want to create. We want to, have activations globally at a certain point in time. So
yeah.
Big aspirations, mate, but we'll get there.
Okay, I love a good ass tap, mate. And it's funny the way the market's gone. You mentioned COVID, and so, you saw everyone go online. And, these companies like Peloton started killing it. Everyone's like, everything's going to be online. Everyone's throwing and investing all this money and time into online. Second things open back up, all that stuff sort of goes to shit, and the community is back. The face-to-face stuff, there's no AI that's ever going to replace that, right?
No, never.
No robot's going to replace the face-to-face stuff. So why did you guys land on activewear? Because I know you were sort of floating maybe supplements. So why activewear?
Yeah, I mean, so to take a step back behind 110 is there was five lads, and we set up a group called the Accountability Group, and they said it might sound a bit lame, but it's been quite a successful thing where we would, at the start of the year, we would link up, we would share our goals, short-term, long-term, and then each quarter we would check in with each other, we'll run back through our goals and see how we're tracking and keep each other accountable. So we, in the first year, there was 4 of us. We toyed around with the idea of a side hustle. Some of the boys that were around have set up successful businesses, and we were thinking about what could we do, and we toyed around with an activewear brand. We're all active. We understand what it brings to our work career as well, the benefits that brings to us. And then we brought in Chris at the start of last year, and it just by chance he mentioned to us that he thought we should look at doing a side hustle, and he mentioned the activewear brand thing, and we all looked, the first four of us looked at each other, we had a good chuckle, and we're like, we've toyed around with it, so like let's get the show on the road. So it's been 13, 14 months in development. We're not cutting corners. We are genuinely putting a product out there that we think is unmatched. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of good brands out there, but we want a brand that's, we're trying and testing this thing. It's in the founders. We're testing it. We're giving it to our potential athletes and ambassadors, and they're trying and testing it. So it's a proper product, and just by nature of that accountability group, we've just gotten on with it. And I think having the safety net around, having the lads there to bounce off each other, and we all bring something different to the table. But again, it was sort of all leading back to our love for health and fitness, and wanting to try and fill a gap that we see in the market here, particularly in Australia.
Yeah. Okay. And so you said it's been like 18 months in the making. So what sort of, have you faced some roadblocks, I'm assuming, along the way? Yeah. As you guys are launching something new. So tell me about your biggest hurdle and how you've overcome that with the business.
I mean, look, we're going into this. We understand a garment and what we like in a garment, but I think the biggest thing is trying to transfer that through to the factories and getting an outcome that we're comfortable with. And I mean, the biggest hurdle for us was, there's a lot of excitement from our part to get this to market, but not rushing it. So trying to pull ourselves back at moments. I get ahead of myself 100% in terms of wanting to just launch this thing, but pulling ourselves back. We got caught up with the Chinese New Year, so that's really pushed us back quite a fair way. And, we're sort of talking to friends and family about it, and everyone's sort of asking, when's it coming? So it's, I guess, managing the expectation around the market as to when it's coming, and we're comfortable that it'll be here mid-year. But I think the biggest thing was, just understanding how to navigate the manufacturing process, getting caught up in Chinese New Year, which we'll never do again. And then we've got a sort of forward plan, but we also don't want to get ahead of ourselves as well.
Yeah, no, I get that, mate. And I had a crack at launching a food product last year.
Yeah.
It took like 2 years to get off the ground. And unlike, you're perfecting your product, I took so long to get the product to market that I launched it before it was perfect. That makes sense. And that completely basically ruined everything. So instead of waiting to get the product perfect, I'd been working so hard at it. I was like, just fucking get it out there. And it was a subpar product and it didn't do as well as it probably should have. So I had to shut it down, but lesson learned, and it sounds like you guys are doing it right there.
Yeah. It's not by, we're lucky that we've got the guys that have been through it before to help pull us back. I think we could have certainly been in a similar position, just off the back of pure excitement, and putting out there an okay product.
Yeah, okay.
I mean? Yeah.
And so who are some of the brands you're looking to emulate, right? So you're a fit guy like me, activewear, I live in it. Like,
absolutely.
Who are you looking at? Who do you love? Who are you trying to emulate? Anyone in particular, or?
Yeah, there's some good brands we sort of see. I think the UK is doing a really good job of it. You've probably got UVU and probably Represent 247, I think, that have Represent coming off the back of a streetwear brand. They had Kudos in the market and then pivoting into the space, and they're not cheap. They're not cheap at all, but they've got a product that you want to aspire to be in. I think by nature of the community that they are building around that, they've got some awesome athletes, and they live and breathe it. Like, they're actually competing in this space, whether it's religiously or not. They're obviously running a very successful multi-million-dollar business, but they are also putting themselves in the ring, in the arena. We look at those guys and we like what they're doing.
Okay. Is it challenging working with 5? You said it was 5 of you?
Yes. Yeah,
okay. What's that like in terms of like how you each person has their own role very clearly, or is it sort of like everyone trying to? Yeah. Does it get hard?
It's certainly been a journey. I think the roles are still evolving as we get closer and closer. Absolutely. But I think in the beginning it was probably unclear. I think we were just so focused on getting the product and getting samples made and tweaking them and whatnot. But no, right now it's very clear, and one of the boys taking charge, Scotty Rumble's obviously built his very successful asset finance business on systems and processes, and it's like clockwork for him. So he's bringing that into the fold for us, and the roles and what parts of the business we're looking after has really come forward in that. I think we were very, very loose, and I think it can be a blessing and a curse at times. I think not having very clear guide rails can get to a point, but it can also, you can easily derail it if we're not sort of ticking all the boxes along the way.
Okay.
So
mate, sounds exciting.
Everyone's got different views too, right? Like, I can give you a pair of the shorts and you might think, oh shit, I wish it was a little bit shorter or whatnot. So we've had some of those moments, but in all honesty, I think we brought the product back to the group, I'd probably say about a month ago, and I think they were pleasantly surprised as to the development it's taken, and when they put that on, they felt really good. And the same thing with giving it to the athletes. We're getting the feedback from them along the journey, and we're making tweaks, and whether it's a centimetre here or a half a centimetre there. But in all, it's having a lot of chefs in the kitchen, as they say, can be a bit of a nightmare to navigate. But it's actually working really well.
Okay, sounds like you guys are doing a good job. So let's take a little switch here from 110 the business and start talking about Lockie Clancy.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so what's your biggest source of inspiration?
Biggest source of inspiration. I think the people that I surround myself with is really where I try and get a lot of that. As a younger kid, I think everyone looks up to their parents and wants to be and aspire to be them. So certainly in my younger age and whatnot. But nowadays, as an adult, I think I try and surround myself with people that are better, or will get something better out of me. So I'm blessed with our friend group that we've got a lot of good, driven, successful men and women around us. I get to hang out and rub shoulders with the likes of Ned Brockman, and I don't take that for granted, because I'm dealing with, I honestly think, the strongest mindset in the whole of the world right now. So just taking leaves out of their book, and that's sort of helping to evolve and get me to become, I guess, a more comfortable Lachlan Clancy. I think certainly as men we go through and try and, I was certainly a people pleaser for a long part of my teenage years and 20s, and it probably wasn't until my 30s when I started to do a bit of work on myself that now I'm comfortable, and I'm happy to put myself out there, and take me or leave me, I don't give a shit. So certainly the inspiration I take is probably just around the people that I surround myself with.
Yeah, mate, that's very powerful. So I know a lot of people struggle with it, especially putting yourself out there. So how did you beat that sort of, I guess, challenge of just not giving a fuck what people think about you? Because it's something that I know a lot of people struggle with. People have aspirations to start a podcast, to start a business, to do something different, to try something new, and they get sort of tunneled into going along with the crowd as opposed to doing what's truly authentic to them. I see it a lot. Like, we all see it a lot here in Sydney. So tell me, how did you said you worked on yourself. What did you do exactly? Was it therapy? Was it what did you do? Courses, books, anything?
Yeah, it's I think it probably wasn't until I was 30 was when I started seeing a counsellor. With my wife and I would go and do sessions together. I'll do them individually, and I probably didn't appreciate the amount of weight that I was probably carrying on myself at that point in time, until I was given that forum to do so. And that process has led me to be a better communicator, to learn, to be honest, mate, I didn't even know what the word empathy was at the age of 30. That's when I've started to learn it. And albeit I thought that I was always there for the boys, and, growing up, is now trying to be there for them on a more emotional level, as opposed to, let's go and tie one on and have a good night. So I think the counselling has been a big thing, and that's something that I sort of go back and check in with, on an as-need basis for now. But certainly, having lived through the loss of my brother and things like that, that's allowed me to, I guess, to also shift and understand, life is short, and you've got to go out there and live it. And I think, losing my brother 2 years ago has also helped me become very comfortable with, just go out there and do your thing, and don't get caught up in if people want to follow your journey or not. So that's probably been a big sort of trigger or moment in my life, I guess, to get to being comfortable with putting it out there, and not for lack of, having the boys support me and my wife support me and saying, go out and do it. So yeah, I've got the support network behind me to do it as well.
Yeah, that's unreal, mate. So the counselling stuff, as someone who had a gym and have been helping people get fit for almost 15 years now, the amount of people I see spending money, spending time, spending effort on their physical, which is obviously just as important, but not doing the stuff on the mental side as well. I see a lot more people, and it's a vanity thing as well. Also, you feel good when you're training, right? Dopamine, endorphins, all that sort of stuff. But I was always amazed at the lack of people who are willing to sort of go sit in the room and chat with someone. So have you seen, I guess, progress for younger men? Because men in particular struggle with talking about emotions and exploring these sort of issues. Have you seen, I don't know, the landscape in Sydney changing with people more willing to go have a chat to a counsellor or a therapist?
I think certainly, maybe it's just coming with age as well. And as you get older, you have to live through these experiences of, losing someone or, losing a business or whatever it might be. Certainly within our group, I think personally from our private schooling and stuff like that, we're probably not taught that. But you've got the likes of like Hunter, who's out there with the man cave going around to schools and teaching these kids what empathy is and being vulnerable and all those sort of things. And I think you've also got to appreciate that those skills actually translate into your work career. It's not just your relationships that you've got between your friends and family. So I think it's helped me become a better people manager at work, because I can hear and listen and pick up on the cues if someone's been through something. So it's a win-win. And you talk about the dopamine hit when you go to the gym, but there's actually not been one counselling session that I've ever left and felt like, fuck, that was shit. Like I've walked out, I feel like I've got a weight off my shoulders, or, you know, I've learned something. I've got a tool for my toolkit on how I can deal with, you know, if something comes at me, I can recognise it and navigate that. So, you know, the session might be $200, but it's the best $200 you've ever spent.
Yeah, well, it's no different to the gym session. What's the saying? They say the only workout you regret is the one you didn't do, and similar to counselling. But yeah, going on to the emotional intelligence, it's funny because like as young men growing up, like we're not in tune with our emotions. Like I remember when I first started going to see a psychologist, I had some anxiety issues in my early 20s. Someone recommended to go see a psychologist, and she basically was like, she asked me to list the emotions that I felt on a day-to-day basis, and I literally was like happy, sad. Like I was like, I felt like a robot, and I felt embarrassed. I'm like, there's such a plethora of emotions that we can feel as humans, and I was only aware of two of them. So,
you know what I mean? Yeah.
So, yeah, the emotional intelligence, and it's something you know talk about as a young man. No one's teaching you this stuff in school, but there are some great initiatives out there. Like you said, now you know they're going into high schools, they're having these conversations with kids and making them think about these things. What does Lockie Clancy value? So that's a big one for me as I've gotten older, of being clear on your values, and sort of like your North Star for like, you know, how you're going to live your life. Are you clear on your values? Is this something you think about, or it's sort of less pinpointed and just more on how you're living your life currently?
Probably. I think there's definitely values that I try and live by, and we sort of talk about them in our accountability group. But I wouldn't have a set list of value. But I do know that I value, deeper relationships nowadays, like having those deeper conversations, and rather than just surface level relationships, is trying to have those in-depth relationships that are actually going to bring selfishly the better out in me, and hopefully counterpart it works for them as well. I think aside from that, I just want good, genuine, authentic people around me, and I've sort of naturally found in my journey, if I look back at who I was to where I am now, a lot of the people that I surround myself with are on a very similar journey. And I think where you can connect with someone on a deeper level is they've been through an experience similar to yours or not, but they've had that experience. So I think a lot of people that haven't maybe had a real life-changing experience, that can sometimes struggle to connect on a deeper level. But I think I value my time. I know my time on this earth is limited, and I just want to make the most of it. Okay.
You mentioned your brother passing away a couple of years ago, and if you're comfortable, could you tell us a bit about what happened and how you managed to get through what I'm assuming is probably the most challenging time in your life?
Yeah, 100%, mate. Aaron, so I'm a brother of one of three. Aaron was the eldest, and had an alcohol addiction, and it was a long battle that he went through, and it came the day where his body just gave up, and talking about stars aligning, mum and dad are separated, and would generally only really talk or be in touch talking about my brother or going and checking in on him. And, he was in and out of rehab multiple times, and would end up at dad's place, would end up at mum's place sporadically in certain times, and they would have to deal with the anger and the alcoholism and his episodes and everything else. But Mum and Dad, by chance, were going out to go and help clean out his apartment before the real estate agent came through. He had a really bad black mold issue, and they were together to find their son on the kitchen floor, unfortunately. So I tried to talk about it as much as I could when it was the rawest. So people were texting me or calling me when they found out the news, and I made a point to acknowledge them and thank them. And if they called me, I would call them back and I would cry my eyes out. And that's by nature of me being a more comfortable man at that point in my life. And also, I guess, dealing through counselling was like somewhat preparing myself for that moment. I used to talk about Aaron a lot with my counsellor, and she really helped setting boundaries, I guess, within my family, particularly my brother. I knew that I'd done everything I could in terms of trying to lead him down the right path or try and encourage him to try something different. But if anyone has been around an alcoholic, they understand, or they're going through it, and there's actually probably more than anyone that actually knows. And unless you talk about it, you won't uncover it. But they've got to want to change themselves or fix themselves. And that took me a lot to get comfortable with. You know, I'm so driven on one end of the spectrum, and I just couldn't fathom why he couldn't see it the way I see it or how he could pull himself out of it. So I was really trying to get comfort that we had tried everything we could, and it was waiting for that moment, ideally, that the penny would drop and he would want to help himself and pull himself out of it. Unfortunately, his body clock gave up before we could get there.
Okay, mate. And so obviously the support network, the counselling, that's all the tools you use to sort of get through something like that. It sounded like you're in a pretty good place mentally while that was happening, at least. So you'd been to the counselling, you'd been more, I guess, open and, you know, willing to have a cry and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Was there anything else in particular you used to help you get over that you know, terrible life moment?
My wife, man. Like I can't thank her enough. We've been through a shitload in the last 11 years, between her losing her mum to me losing my brother, she being there as my parents announced their separation and all these sort of things. So without her, and mate, I made the worst mistake in my life when she lost her mum. I didn't fly back for her mother's funeral. My wife's American, and I regret that every single day. And that was something that we had to go to counselling to overcome. So, you know, I think by nature of her having been through something similar, I could rely on her, you know, whenever I needed to. And I think just, as I say, mate, just being open and crying about it. You know, I had Scotty Rumble turn up the next morning and literally just come and give me a hug, and we stood at the front door and we cried and everything else. So just being comfortable with it, and just trying to talk about it. And I think that's why I want to talk about it more, because a lot of people aren't talking about it as well.
Man, I love that. And so much respect for you, man. I think people really struggle admitting when they fuck up. It's one thing I think society, no one wants to make mistakes, right? And for you to put your hand up and say, I fucked up, think about it every day about not flying back when your wife needed you. But, you know, you're doing your best to make amends, it sounds like, and you guys are in a rock solid position. And shout out to your wonderful wife who's, you know, sounds like I don't know where you'd be without her.
Yeah, 100%.
We'll save that soundbite, mate, and send it to her. So you're getting the good books.
Yeah.
Okay, mate. So tell me, we'll talk a little bit more about your health journey now. So tell me, like, what's the best decision you've ever made for your health and fitness journey? It could be anything, a mindset, a training program. What's something you've stumbled across that sort of changed things for you?
There's probably two things. I think leaning in on getting a coach, I think, has been a big thing. Sometimes getting up and rocking up to the gym and trying to have to think about a session can just be quite daunting, and you never really actually go out and get the most out of yourself. But certainly getting coaches that are, you know, the best in their field to help with that. And then probably second, of late, and maybe off the back of my brother's journey, is probably just having a different relationship with alcohol. I'm not going to sit here and say I don't drink. I do enjoy a drink, but it's definitely more for an enjoyment purpose, or I want to go and, socialize with the right people at the right time to go and enjoy it. So, being able to turn up every single morning and not feel crap because you've had 10 beers the night before, you can turn up and train and set your day up, day in, day out, week in, week out, has been a big change, I think, particularly for me in the last 6-8 months, trying to actually lean into this sport that I've found that I can be reasonably competitive in at my mid-30s is quite exciting. As a kid, all I wanted to be was a professional sportsman. I think a lot of guys growing up are probably that within our circle. So it kind of puts me back into a competitive field, which I'm loving, and it keeps me honest. If I can book another race, I know it's coming, and I want to be the best version of myself when I get to that start line. So, continually booking in races and commitments to keep my health and fitness on the right track. Okay,
so tell the people who might not know what Hyrox is. I sort of roughly know what it is. I've seen you on social media posting about it. It's taken the world by storm. It appears it's very fast going. Kind of reminds me of CrossFit. When CrossFit hit, everyone was like CrossFit. Like Hyrox seems to me smarter than CrossFit. It's like anyone can kind of do it. There's not a lot of highly technical movements. So, anyone can have a crack at a lot of these movements. And so tell us a little bit more about it. What exactly is it? And did I see, I think the first Hyrox you did you come on the podium or something like that? Or you came, you did, right?
I did, yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
so you were just a natural freak and you just showed up and just started kicking ass straight away. So tell us about that first Hyrox, how it made you feel and what Hyrox actually is.
Yeah, so Hyrox is I guess the best way to describe it's like a strength endurance race. You do a 1 kilometer run, and then you come in and you do an exercise, and then you do a kilometer run, you do an exercise. So all up, it's 8 kilometers and 8 exercises. It's the exact same format everywhere around the world where they set it up. Obviously, the venues are slightly different layouts and whatnot, but you can really look to pin yourself against people globally just by nature of it always being the 8 kilometers on the runs and the exact same distances and weights that you've got to do on the exercises. So that's quite cool. And they've taken a format probably from the Ironman and the approach that they've got, that if you go on and you win, you can qualify in your age group, and they hold a world championship event once a year, which is in Chicago this year in June, which my eyes are clearly focused on at the moment. But going back to my first Hyrox, I had been training with James Kelly, who's the fastest Australian Hyrox athlete. He's got the second fastest time ever. I jumped on with him for about a month worth of a program just to try and actually understand the sport, know what I was coming into. It was actually the boys that were started 110. We all agreed that we were all going to compete in Sydney, and me being the competitive person that I am, I wanted to get an edge. I went and got a coach and really lent into it. And Melbourne for me was actually a weekend visiting my dad. It just happened to be on, and I said, look, I'll go in the open category and just understand what the race was. So put myself into the open category. There's 2 categories, open and pro, and the difference is the weights and stuff like that you move during the race. And I went on to win my age group. I think I came second overall in that event. And I mean, that moment for me was actually super special. Not having been in a team sport for over 10 years, I've just been, maybe running a half marathon here, a ultra marathon here, or whatever it was. You very rare you get the moments where your parents are there to watch and support. And anyways, my dad was there, and I hear this, get up and work, whip it, go. I'm like, where's this come from? Because it took me back to exactly when I was, under 12s, and my dad was there watching me play Aussie rules and screaming at me to put my head over the footy, and that's my footy kind of thing. And that was quite a special moment. And whether that's made me lean into it more, I'm not too sure. But, I've had mum and my brother come out and my wife come out to Sydney. Em's travelled with me to Brisbane and watched me race there. So sharing those moments has been super special as well. So, yeah, loving it, mate. I'm not not where I want to be, and I don't think you ever will. With this sport, there's so much data that you get, and there's always little tweaks or areas you can improve on. And I think that's why people keep coming back to it. It's not for the elitist. It's super attainable. You can go in under a doubles team, a relay team, or whatever you want. And they've actually got an adaptive format. I mean, I was just out in Auckland at the end of January, and a girl with one arm was doing it. So that shows you that anyone can do this.
Yeah, no excuses, mate, for this one. Well, man, I'm happy for you that you've sort of found something that sort of relit your, sporting fire. Because, being a young man growing up playing a lot of sport, there's, and as you get older, it's hard to find time. I was playing just socially and I was always hurting myself. So I had to just quit and start running or something like that. So it's amazing that you can do that. Having a gym gave me a little bit of that, camaraderie and that teamwork. I think that's why I love fitness. It's why I love coaching, because it's still sort of like in that sort of same realm. So tell me a little bit, do you have a particular philosophy on your health, wellness, nutrition, like an umbrella philosophy that sort of you like to follow?
Not particular. I mean, I probably just sort of spoke about it on my last post, but I just think it's there's so much that comes from the physical health that benefits you mentally, and the strength and vulnerability you can create through physical health. So for me, I think the umbrella thing is that I just know that I'm a better human by doing it, whether it's being physically fitter and wanting to be there for my future children and playing with my nieces now, or setting up my day and really having that clarity, mental clarity that it gives me after getting a good sweat out in most mornings.
Okay, nice. You mentioned alcohol and sort of the way you've changed your relationship with alcohol. It's something that I have struggled with, come good in my older years, but definitely struggled with as a younger man. I definitely abused alcohol. Yeah. So was there a certain turning point for you? Was it more recent or was it years ago? Sort of, what's your philosophy on something like alcohol? You mentioned you still sort of do it, but you have sort of, I guess, set times and people you might do it with. So talk to me about your struggles with alcohol and what was the turning point for you?
Yeah, I think I thought about this in the car. So I was certainly one that would burn it at both ends. Back when I was playing footy, trained super hard. I always wanted to max out all the tests and, turn up on a Saturday and be my best. And then come Saturday night, it was on for young and old. And that was just a weekend cycle, just same thing. Every single week I'd be drinking probably Saturday, Sunday, freshen up Monday, turn up to training on Tuesday. It probably wasn't until I hung the boots up and I jumped in the ring, and I've always had a fascination for boxing. And I mean, end of the day, in boxing, it's you versus another bloke, and there's only one person that walks out a winner. And I looked at a lot of the boxers around that time, and I think the discipline that shows you don't want to jump in the ring undercooked. Like there's no point in doing it. So I did a corporate fighter, and that was probably the first time I think I took 12 weeks off the drink, because I knew that me getting into the ring with someone, if I had that 1% better position off the back of me not drinking, that I was a better chance at winning the fight. I went on and did a few more fights post that, but certainly I think that was the first moment where I was comfortable to put the drink to the side and focus purely on health and fitness. And then I think it's just by nature of growing up, being more comfortable with who I am too. Like, I don't need to be the guy that goes to the pub with every single bloke to be their best mate or whatever. So seeing my brother go through his thing, me now wanting to get the best out of myself in each Hyrox race, is drinking's not going to be beneficial for that. So I just choose not to do it. But don't get me wrong, if I'm enjoying a lovely dinner with my wife and I want to enjoy a glass of wine, I'll 100% enjoy a glass of wine. Or if there's a special event or a birthday, I might enjoy a beer or two. But I'm not going out and chasing the sunrise. That's for sure. And I think it's just being comfortable with who I am, and people also being more comfortable with, okay, Locke's on that journey, and I'm not going to call him and ask him if he wants to come to the pub or whatever. But equally too, it's actually very easy to go off and do. I mean, the non-alcoholic beers nowadays, if you feel uncomfortable, the thing is that you overcoming you being uncomfortable, I think, because in the social setting, no one knows or gives a shit if you're drinking a water or a soda water or a beer. So the non-alcoholic beers, you can sit there at a table with what looks to be a beer and enjoy it, and not have that, well, whatever that mental struggle is that you're telling yourself you've got to overcome with. So I think there's that industry's pivoted, and I think making it a lot more easier for, people to go on and not drink. And I think a lot of the younger kids nowadays are electing not to. I'm hearing more and more people that are on a journey to not drink for whether it's a month, 3 months, 12 months, and then it snowballs on from there. And some people need to not drink for the benefit of their health completely. They just know it's not conducive to getting the best out of themselves. So yeah, it's been a bit of a journey, and I think having something that I want to perform in has certainly helped that as well.
Yeah, I think it helps. And what you're saying is like have something more important than going out and getting on the piss. Right. And it's easier said than done. I'll just go find a purpose or a mission or something. But yeah, trying to find something that's going to cause you to maybe, go home after 1 or 2 beers as opposed to staying out till the sunrise, and so you can wake up fresh and attack whatever you want to achieve in life the next day. And it's really hard. I know one of my biggest struggles was, I, like you, burned it on both ends and used to love getting absolutely sideshowed at most weekends, Saturday, Friday, whatever, after work, drinks on Friday through to Sunday. And changing your identity from being that guy who does that to not do that can be really hard, especially in your social groups. Like I had friends, we'd go to the pub every Friday without fail, maybe Saturday too. And then when you stop going, it's like, you're not going to find the pub? Yeah. What the fuck? What'd you do with Jeff? And it's like, what the fuck's happened to the Jeff? Yeah. And so that takes a while. But like I said, in no time, people understand it. Okay, well, that's just what Jeff does now. Yeah. So anyone listening who's struggling with that, it's hard at the start, but in no time, your real friends are going to understand who you are and what you want to do. And, real friends are never going to shame you or anything like that. So
don't leave them out though, guys. Bring them to the pub. Just tell them to have a zero.
Yeah, exactly. And mate, and like you said, as long as you have something, and it's sort of almost, because it can be socially awkward to go out and not have a drink, and everyone's going, oh, you're not drinking, I'll just have one more. And so to have just anything in your hand, and if someone's pissed, they're not going to fucking know if you're drinking. It doesn't even matter anymore. So it has been cool to see, I guess, the explosion of non-alcoholic beverages, and people are just more, I think, acceptable than the generation above us. Like our generation is a little bit more health conscious, and the same, the younger generation is even more so. Correct. So we're sort of getting along, but even the younger generation, I think more people are just opting not to drink at all.
Yeah, it's crazy how it's changing.
Yeah. So what do you like outside of health and fitness? Obviously, it's hard for a guy like you who's so driven in one area. What do you do for fun outside of the health and fitness realm? Do you have any quirky little hobbies or anything you want to share with the crew or anything?
Quirky hobby. No, nothing.
Doesn't have to be a quirky hobby.
Nothing too quirky, to be honest. Mate, I travel for me is a big one. I think, I've learned a lot through my journey, and you meet so many different people in that. My wife and I love having those experiences in those first moments together. So going and exploring a new country together is certainly, whether that's a hobby or not, but no, I wouldn't say there's too much outside of that.
Okay.
Really.
Okay. If you could have a beer with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be?
It's a good one. Now, I'd probably say LeBron. It's fascinating the career he's had, the duration it's had, and the accolades that he's built. I'll be the first to admit I'm just a LeBron slug. Whatever team he goes to, I follow. And a lot of people will say, Michael Jordan versus LeBron, but LeBron's probably obviously more this era. I've seen a lot of, and again, it's probably that moment of just being able to rub shoulders with someone that's achieved so much, and just trying to see what I could leech off him. I think LeBron would be all right. Okay.
Mate, it's funny. I'm about to get a Kobe one put up here as well. Kobe's probably my guy I'd love to have a beer with. He's obviously passed away, and I just think all their mindsets, the three of them we were talking about, their mindset, and Kobe was doing some amazing things for basketball. He was still sticking around. Jordan, kind of, alcoholism, gambling, amazing player, but I just think who he kind of became after was a little, I guess, yeah.
You see what LeBron's doing too, right? He's giving back to community. I think he understands his roots and where he came from, and going and setting up schools and educational things is super impressive, and that's to the point of trying to leave this earth in a better place. That's certainly what he's endeavouring to do as well.
Yeah, that sounds like it definitely resonates with you, mate. According to what you're trying to achieve, do you have any rituals?
I'm a 100%. I think just a simple daily ritual for me is just that routine of getting up at 5:30, going getting my gym session, going to my 9 to 5, and then coming home and trying to, again, the importance of sleep and understand that if I don't get enough sleep, that I'm probably not the best version of myself. So I take myself downstairs and have my little nighttime routine, whether it's putting on my red LED mask for my skin.
That looks hot, man. I've seen it on the ground. More content of that, please.
Okay. She doesn't want me to age, and rightfully so. So it's probably just the daily rituals, I think, and certainly, come race day, I've certainly got rituals in terms of I always put my left shoe on first and all that sort of stuff. But the biggest one and most prevalent is just my daily ritual. Okay.
And how do you deal with setbacks? So I've been watching your social media, obviously, and there's been a few races where you're like, that didn't go according to plan, that didn't go according to plan. And there's never a part of me that ever thinks you're just going to hang up the boots. Like, I know you're coming back better than ever. So how do you deal with setbacks? What happens? What goes through your mind when, people might perceive it as a failure because you don't do as well as you set out to do? But what goes on in your head when you don't do as well as you wanted to, or something doesn't work out?
This weekend I had to make the call on Friday afternoon that I wasn't going to fly to Brisbane and compete. I was set on going up there and trying to get some redemption off the back of some performances that I certainly wasn't happy with, and whether that's my expectations I put on myself or where I want to get to, I think, in the sport. But the weekend was really tough. There's a bit of sickness, and I just didn't want to go up there not at 100%, knowing I was probably operating at 80. It would have been a very tough race to get through, and if I'm going to get to my next race, which is sort of 6 weeks out, it was a smarter decision to not go up, because I generally pull up pretty lame, and I probably take sort of half a week to sort of get the body moving again off the back of that. So I try and use it as fuel, to be honest, for the next one. I think the setbacks and, you deal with injuries, and I think it's mind over matter sometimes. Actually one of the guys said to me on the weekend, he's like, the body will do what the mind tells it, sort of thing. So if I'm going to put so much time and energy up here on an injury that you can overcome, that's going to start to bear weight on me. So I try not to think about it, or try and work out a way, okay, I need to hone in on strengthening that area or that point of weakness, so it's not a weakness for me going forward. But I think, I've got fire in the belly off the back of not being able to compete and watching the guys compete, and a lot of them get great results. So then at the next race in 6 weeks, I think that's just going to be that little burner inside my belly that I'm going to try and lean into to go forward from there.
Okay. Love that, mate. So tell me, you mentioned Ned Brockman before. First off, anyone listening, just tell them what he's done recently, and how has that rubbed off on you, being so close to him and seeing up close and personal? Like you said, you think he's got the most powerful mindset on the planet right now, right? So tell me, how has that impacted you? First of all, tell people what he's done, who are listening, who might not have heard about him, and then how has that impacted you?
Yeah, so he's just gone off and put himself on a track and run 1,000 miles around a track for 12 days to raise an unfathomable amount of money for homelessness. And Neddy is definitely one that really wants to leave Earth in a better place than what it was. He raised, I think, $7 million for homelessness at the ripe old age of, I think he's 26, and being there actually at the track for the last 5 days, and I was there before I had a trip in between for the days in the middle, but came back and you can see his body just didn't want to go, but his mind to tell it to go and keep going, and knowing that it might sound crazy, but like, he's probably telling himself like, no one's going to die from sore knees, like just keep fucking going. And his why was not to go out and get a record. As much as that would have been great for him, it was to draw as much attention and to use his voice and his platform that he's built to raise these funds for homelessness. And it's always been that. He's so genuine in that. And mate, if I could take 1% of his mindset, I'd be a superhuman, I think. And, everyone sort of looks at a David Goggins and those sort of people that are on that platform. But I can nearly hand on heart tell you Dave Goggins wouldn't have completed what Ned went through when he was going into that underdone. Like I was training with him each week, would go and, lift some weights and have a coffee and chat about everything and anything, right? But he was going in with a cooked ankle, and he knew that from his first step he was going to have this burning pain, but he committed to it and that he was going to go get through it. And that was just incredible. I mean, I'm probably not putting it in the most eloquent wording, and it's really hard to, because I've just never experienced anything like it. Like I've gone and run the ultra marathon with Dan back in 2020, so I have some sort of inkling as to what it takes or what the body feels when it goes through something like that. But Neddy's just he's on his own level. It's incredible.
Yeah, man, watching him from afar, I think he caught captivated Australians' hearts from just watching what he's done, probably globally as well. I'm not so sure, but definitely here in Australia. And if you're listening, Mr. Goggins, mate, you don't stand a chance against Ned Brockman. Do you have any bad habits that you're trying to break currently, mate? And if so, what is it, and how are you going about that?
I think everyone's got bad habits.
Of course.
My wife will call me on it weekly, I think. But I think it's not health and fitness. It's really just, I guess, trying to be a better communicator. I think I can miss cues with my wife, and I think it's just trying to continually break that habit or be able to communicate on a different level to what I'm used to. I come from a family where we never really spoke about it. My mum and dad never really spoke about feelings or anything. It's only now that I'm trying to pry it out of them based on the skills that I've developed, through my journey of counselling or, going and working on it with my wife. So that's probably the biggest bad habit I'm trying to fix. There would be others that should probably say, but we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, we'll keep that one for off camera, mate. What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given, and who was it from?
So probably it's more of a work-related one, and this was going back to when I started my career in property development, shifting from project management to property development. And the owner of the business, rest in peace, Lang Walker, he said, "You've got 2 ears and 1 mouth, use them accordingly." So he was a big believer in listening and only speaking when you thought it was relevant. So me being a confident young man could get caught up, I think, in maybe speaking or over speaking at times. And I think the only way to learn is to listen, and, hearing from your experiences or someone else's or in a boardroom, you're generally not going to be the smartest person in the room. So just listen and speak accordingly, really. So that was quite interesting. And I always sort of remember that.
Okay. They'd say seek first to understand, I believe, is one of those old sayings.
Yeah.
So you kind of touched on this a little bit about being a young man growing up. So if you could go back in time and have a chat to 18-year-old Lockie Clancy coming out of high school, what's a piece of advice you would give him?
I think I would have loved to have gotten to where I am now at a lot younger age. And I think it's just that being comfortable with who I am. And I think maybe at that age, I got caught up in putting on a show for a lot of people and trying to be the center of attention or the showman, let's call it, for the sake of maybe some insecurities that I had in myself. So, I mean, if I could go back, it would be certainly probably the last 4 or 5 year journey that I've been on. I would have loved to have, really hit that nail on the head for myself at that age.
Okay. I love that, mate. So that pretty much wraps it up, Bob.
Oh,
So that was awesome. But I want to hear, if people want to follow your journey, how can they follow you? How can they support your brand that's about to launch? When is it launching, by the way?
Maybe we should be launching probably, let's go with July.
This year. Okay. There's always setbacks, mate.
I don't want to overpromise. Let's get there. But yeah, look, we're about to go into bulk production on that. So that's, let's go with July. But yeah, look, my journey, whether you like it or not, you can choose to follow. I'm using sort of all the social media platforms, but yeah, Instagram, Lockie _Clancy. And that's, I'm just really trying to share my health and fitness journey, my travel, and I guess also trying to give a bit of insight to the mental health journey that I'm on and will always be on. And, if there's something that resounds there with someone on their journey, hopefully I can inspire people. I get a lot of reward, and I think you would have had that back with your gym days is, trying to inspire the group that was in there, or, seeing people achieve a result, or just striking a chord with someone based on my journey, and if it helps them is super rewarding.
Well, the story is never ending, mate. It's always a work in progress. I look forward to watching you grow and watching how this brand grows and how you grow as a competitor and as a man. Did miss a question. Let's just circle back. Just leave the people with what sort of avenues of growth do you like? Podcasts, books? Is there people in particular? I know Ned Brockman's a huge inspiration of yours. Anyone else you want to just leave the people with in case they want to go and get inspired and sort of grow mentally, physically? Who do you recommend following? Anything like that?
Yeah, I think around that sort of, the longevity thing's a massive one, and that's probably also a nature of pulling myself away from alcohol, is when you understand it's purely poison for your body. But the likes of Huberman, Peter Attia, Dr. James, I think, just speaks some very simple truths around supplements, your sleep, and how to live your life in a very simple way. To be active puts you in basically the top 1% of your age bracket. It's a very simple approach, whether it's going for a walk or walking your dog or going to the gym and being extreme, whatever you want to be, but doing those sort of things. So he's been great. That's probably health and fitness. On the empathy side, not that I've listened a whole lot, but Brene Brown, she's probably very, very prevalent in that circle. And then from a business standpoint, I think the Diary of the CEO is great. You hear a lot of stories of people that come on there, and it's fascinating. I'm always fascinated about people's careers and how they've got to where they are. And a lot of the time, it's people that have fallen flat on their ass and they've had to bounce back from something. But yeah, he puts on a good show and gets some really good and interesting guests on there. So
okay, well, mate, I appreciate you. And guys, if you've listened this far, we hope you liked it. Share it with a friend that you think it might have a positive impact on. Drop us a message if you have any questions. Thanks, Lockie, for being on the show, and peace out. We will see you guys next time. Thank you, my man.
I appreciate you, man.